Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back on another interesting topic on Vedic astrology today. And today we'll be talking about the planet Saturn and the professions associated with it. So, this is kind of a video on a career because career does form a very important part of our lives. And as I've already mentioned in my earlier videos as well, that there are several ways to determine your career. And if you go to the main chart, it could be, evaluated or analyzed through the 6th house, the 7th house, the 10th house, the 11th house, the Lord of the 6th house, where it's placed, where the Lord of the 10th house is placed in the Navansha, where the Lord of the 10th house is placed in the Dasamsa. The Dasamsa, which is the D10 chart, a divisional chart related to your profession. And if we go to Gemini astrology, then you look at the Karaka of profession, which is the Amatya Karaka, where the Amatya Karaka is placed in the main chart. What nakshatra the Lord of the 10th house is placed, what nakshatra the Amatya Karaka is placed, where is the Amatya Karaka placed in the Navansha, where is the Atma Karaka placed in Navansha. So the list is very long, and there are several techniques which can be used to determine the right profession. So we're not getting into that. We just going to discuss, in case Saturn has a good connection with your career houses, or if astrologer has already determined that Saturn is related or it's going to be good for your career, what kind of a career you could choose, or what kind of a career you can change into in case you're not happy with your present job and your kind of work you're doing. So this will give a very important indication as to, in case Saturn is related to your house of career, what professions you can get into. So Saturn directly is related to jobs. It's a karaka of a job. Normally, and I'm not saying that people with a strong Saturn cannot become businessmen. They can become great businessmen as well. But as a karaka, as a significator, it signifies jobs, and especially doing ordinary jobs. And in olden days and ages, when slavery was in fashion, thousands of years ago, and people who indulge in either slavery themselves or were slaves themselves, or people who are engaged in the business of slavery, they probably, if you go and check their birth charts, going back thousands of years back, you will find a direct connection between jobs, slavery. And of course slavery does not make sense in today's days and age, but Saturn has a direct connection to ordinary jobs. And like I said, it could be a person who himself is a slave, or a person who is indulging into the business or the trade of slaves, which used to happen, like I said, hundreds and thousands of years ago. So that's one area. And craftsmanship and handicrafts is also one area which Saturn rules over. So any kind of handicrafts you see, so people with a good Saturn can be good craftsmen, I can say that very conveniently, and can really excel in either the manufacture of handicrafts, or they can get into the trade of handicrafts. But then you have to see whether the person has those other houses support to be able to get him into business or not, and or whether he is capable to just produce those goods through his own craftsmanship and skills in handicrafts. That has to be determined before you can go and conclude and make a recommendation to somebody. Iron machines, so anything related to, because iron is directly related to the planet Saturn, so, and machines is also related to the planet Saturn. So iron machines is also an area which Saturn rules over. And if it's not iron, any kind of a machine manufacturer is also ruled by Saturn. Plastic and rubber industry, so people who are engaged in the industry of plastic or rubber manufacturing, they are also, that area is also connected to the planet Saturn. Jute industry, and that also is an area which is ruled by the planet Saturn. Wool industry, that is also an area which is ruled by Saturn. Now it could be whether you're manufacturing it yourself or whether you're trading it yourself. Carpets and rugs manufacture, that's an area which is again directly related to the planet Saturn. And once again, you could be working in the wool industry like a having an ordinary job there, or the jute industry, or the plastic or the rubber industry, or in the carpet industry. But at the same time, if there is a scope of a business in somebody's birth chart, then very conveniently he can be recommended to get into the business of these industries. So obviously, you have to make a final determination after going through the entire chart. Oil industry is also oil and gas, mostly oil, less of natural gas, but oil industry is directly related to the planet Saturn once again. So people could be working in a refinery, or any kind of an activity which involves extraction of oil from the earth. Oil mining, any kind of mining, actually it could be related to any metals, but directly, specifically oil is one area which is directly related to the planet Saturn. So like I said, you could be working there, or you could be engaged in the trading of oil, and it could be in the form of petroleum as well. So people could be in the business of having gas stations, petrol pumps, trading, and anything related to oil extraction or oil mining, until its refining, to transportation of oil, and to final selling of that oil product, which could be in the form of gasoline or petroleum, as whatever you may like to call it. So that area also represented through the planet Saturn. But as astrologers, once again, I'll recommend look at the chart and see whether other areas are supporting him to be working in those industries, or to be doing business in those industries, and then you can determine and make the final recommendation. Also, when it comes to medicines, there are other planets also which overlap as far as medicine is concerned, meaning which you could be a physician, or anybody who's, like in the case of Venus, we saw that people with a strong Venus and with a capability to acquire higher knowledge in medicine can be recommended to go in the field of sexology and gynecology, so on and so forth. Similarly, in this case of Saturn, you could see a combination where they could become doctors and specialists, and specifically they can become specialists related to cancer. So they can become cancer specialists or TB specialists. That's an area which is ruled by the planet Saturn, cancer, TB, and they could become surgeons, general surgeons. And of course, I've discussed in my earlier video that Mars also gives a capability to a person to become a surgeon, because surgery is an area which overlaps between Mars and Saturn. So this is an area of overlap there. But then again, once again, look at The person's ability to acquire higher knowledge, go for higher education, to be able to go to a school of medicine or a medical school and acquire that higher knowledge so that he can become a specialist. Anybody with a strong Saturn cannot become a cancer or a TB specialist, obviously, you know that. Also, library science is also an area which is ruled by the planet Saturn because it involves books. So people who are librarians and who are working in the area of libraries, that's also an area of Saturn. Paper industry, once again, paper is also an area which is ruled by the planet Saturn. Ink manufacture, ink is very directly related to the planet Saturn, especially since it's dark. So colorful inks, that can go into the area of Venus, but here we're talking about ink. Generally it is black and blue, so that kind of a manufacture in industry is also related to the planet Saturn. Either you could be working in that that kind of an industry, or you could be trading in that. And when I go back to kind of jobs which are related to Saturn, generally you'll see that people who are having an influence of Saturn in their jobs, generally they're into very hard jobs, menial jobs, and especially working, late hours, odd hours, and sometimes night hours as well. So keep a lookout for that kind of a combination. You'll see that a lot of people with a strong Saturn and a very strong relationship for being in a job, and maybe if they're not highly qualified, then you'll see them mostly working odd hours, hard jobs, sometimes construction jobs as well, and sometimes working, say for example, working at a call center, working night shifts, or working at a convenience store which is open 24/7, so they're working graveyard or night shifts as they call it. So you'll see an influence of Saturn there in case other combinations are not favorable, which can provide them or give them wealth in terms of doing a business which involves the planet Saturn. If they have to work in a job and there are no other supports from other wealth-giving planets, then you'll see them mostly working odd hours, odd shifts, and sometimes night shifts, which are very, very tough. Also, generally, transport industry is also ruled by the planet Saturn. Once again, look at it from the point of whether he'll just be working as a driver, or just as somebody who is working as doing a menial or a very hard job in the transport industry, or whether he owns a transport company himself. And that all depends on what other planets are supporting his birth chart or not. But transport is one area which is ruled by the planet Saturn. And sometimes great owners of great transport companies, you'll see a great combination of a good Saturn and plus their ability to acquire wealth through business. So that's how it is seen. Like large industrialists, big industrialists, you'll see they own huge industries because that involves machinery. That's an area ruled by the planet Saturn. Also, that involves people who work for them. So because Saturn is directly related to either you becoming an employee of somebody, or you have the ability to hire and employ a lot of people who work for you. So you'll have to see that combination. Some of the very, very big industrialists have that combination, that yes, they have the ability to hire and employ a lot of people working for them. They have huge industries which have huge machinery installed in those factories which they own. They have the ability in their birth chart to acquire business skills, and they can acquire wealth through their skills in business. So that's a combination which comes through a good Saturn as well. Transport industry, we talked about transport industry. Another industry which can, well, not industry exactly, but postal service. So postal service also, is under the purview of the planet Saturn. You'll see, if you see people who are working in post offices and people who are doing transportation of postal goods, that's also an area which comes under the purview of Saturn. And then, of course, if the combination is good, they can rise in the postal industry. Like they can go on to become, postmasters or even higher up the ladder. Coolies. The concept of coolies is there. I'm not sure if it's still there in the Asian countries, but until the British, and many years after the British left their colonies, like India, there was a prevalence, or there were coolies there who would be able to help you with your luggage, carry a luggage for you once you got out of trains. And by the way, railways is also an area which is ruled by the planet Saturn. So people involved with the railways and people who work for the railways, and people who, and it all depends on what level of railways you work, and that'll come based on what other planets are there to support your birth chart. So you could be connected with railways, and if there are other planets that support you as far as making a great career out of it, you could go very high up the ladder in the railways. And if those other planets are not supportive of you, then you can do some menial jobs related to railways. But railways in general does come under the purview of the planet Saturn, like coolies who carry your luggages. They probably do not have a great house of profession, but then Saturn is connected in some way to their house of profession. But other planets are not supporting it to make them go higher up the ladder into the management team which manages railways. They have to kind of be contented with being coolies who can carry your luggage in railway platforms and other places. Jails is also an area which is ruled by the planet Saturn, because it's about confinement. Saturn is about confinement. Saturn is a very lonely planet, as we know. So once again, people who work in jails, or people who are actually convicts who are serving their jail sentences, also have been given this kind of punishment by the planet Saturn, and they have to serve their time in jail. But coming to profession, you'll see levels of people working there, and people who can hold high positions or become jailers and jail superintendents, or somebody who is high up in the management, managing jails and correction centers, as they call it in the West. They don't call it jails anymore. So those people are also very well connected as far as their houses of careers are concerned with the planet Saturn. So you have to see them. And sometimes, if it's related to the police department, then you have to see a combination of Mars and Saturn. And so look at it from a complete analysis, do a complete analysis, and then you can recommend, this person is well suited to go high up the ladder managing jails and correction centers, based on, of course, you'll have to see the Lagna, or the ascendant, and the other houses of profession, and then also other planets. Like I said, if it's a police official coming and managing jails, there has to be a combination between Mars, because Mars is about police and the army, and then Saturn is about jails, so there has to be a connection there. And you'll see that in a lot of charts of people who are managing correction centers. Arms manufacture is also one area which is related to the planet Saturn. And arms, once again, it overlaps with the planet Mars, because Mars is also representing arms, because it's a warrior planet here. But arms manufacture, because it involves steel and iron, and manufacturing and machinery and all that is connected with the planet Saturn. So that's an area where again, there has to be an overlap between Mars and Saturn, and then you'll be able to make a final determination what level you're working. You could have a great Mercury and be a great accountant, and if that combination is there with Mercury and Saturn, then you may be working in the accounting department for an arms manufacturing industry. So that's how the combination has to be looked into. So first we have to understand as to the planet's connection with the area of profession. What areas does it rules, rather. And then you can make a determination. So like I gave you an example of an accountant working for a industry, or any kind of a machine making industry, or any kind of an industry or manufacturing industry. So the combination of Mercury and Saturn, you will see. And then of course you have to say at what level, whether he has the capability to acquire that knowledge, and how the planets are helping him to do a job, or whether there are planets which could help him to acquire business skills and he can be in his own industry. So all these combinations have to be seen, and then you can make a final determination. Also, when it comes to animals, Saturn is also about animals, and especially buffaloes. So in the Far East and in Asian countries, rather, like India, there are people who are rearing buffaloes for buffalo milk, and they're rearing animals, and that area also comes under the purview of the planet Saturn. Hunting is also directly related to the planet Saturn, and also any kind of mining of any kind of a metal, that also is under the purview. I know I mentioned oil and iron and steel and iron ore, which is very, very directly related to Saturn. But any kind of a metal which comes from the earth, when you have to dig in and get that metal out, that process and that whole industry, also mining industry, the entire mining industry comes under the purview of the planet Saturn. And also sometimes protection of wild animals. So there are like forest officers who protect wild animals, and any kind of an organization which works for the protection of wild animals, also that also comes under the purview of the planet Saturn. So this list can continue to go on and on and on, and because these 9 planets start from Sun and then end at the shadow planets. These planets rule almost every atom in this universe, so they'll have rulership over pretty much everything, whatever exists in this universe. So I just want to end at that right now, because like I said, this list can go on and on. And in the meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel, check out my website. There is a link below, and I'll see you with an interesting topic on Vedic astrology very soon. Goodbye.